Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. Today we're going to take a look at what devices are upcoming in 2024, specifically handhelds, and just see what we should start saving our pennies for, if any of them might be worth it, and just get a full list of what's coming out in 2024 that we know of or that's rumored. I'm going to try and go by date here, even though it's a little bit difficult because obviously we don't get a lot of confirmed dates months in advance for a lot of these retro handhelds. And so I'm going to go gut feeling. If there's any dates, I'll go by that first, and then gut feeling, and then we'll talk about all the other ones that at some point might be coming out this year or maybe not. So let's just jump right in. And the first up that's coming out this month is the Miyoo A30. And then next for Miyoo will be the Flip. And we're supposed to get that after the A30. We don't know a date, but my guess is they would want some separation between the A30 and the Flip. So I would probably guess maybe June, July, if I had to put it into a guess. But we'll know soon. Now, Go Game Geek did happen to release a tweet with some dates on the A30 and the Flip. And then they removed that tweet. So can't really go by what they had there. They initially said that everything was going to release in April, and doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But it does seem like at least the A30 is probably releasing this month. Now, we don't have a lot of information, but pricing-wise, we can probably guess that both the A30 and the Flip are going to be in that $60 range, which is basically where Miyoo's products kind of live. So give or take, maybe $10 or so in that range is what I would guess. Now, for those that don't know what the A30 or the Flip are, let's talk about that a little bit. The A30 is a horizontal handheld. It is basically like the Miyoo Mini, so the little guy I have right here, in a horizontal form factor. So it's got the same buttons, it's got the same D-pad, it actually has the same screen, and from what we can guess, it looks like it's the version 4 screen from the Miyoo Mini. So exactly the same one I have right here, and all of that in a horizontal candy bar form factor. So screen-wise, that means 2.8 inch, and it's a 750 by 560 screen, which is the same as the V4. And we don't know what the processor is inside. We don't know a lot of the other specs. I'm kind of hoping that it'll have Wi-Fi, and so it takes after the Miyoo Mini Plus in that way, but we won't know until it releases. Then we have the Miyoo Mini Flip, and that one is a clamshell design, so something entirely new. And it has a new D-pad, and new buttons, it has sticks, so they're going for something completely different than what they're used to. The only thing that we know about that is that it's going to be releasing after the A30, but this has been rumored for an entire year now. It's been supposed to be coming for a year, and so we've finally got some final builds. We've seen what it looks like and all of that, and so I expect that at some point in, like I said before, May, June, July, in that time frame, we'll probably see the Flip. I think the biggest question mark on both the A30 and the Flip is, are they going to support Onion OS, or is Onion OS going to support them? With the A30, since it seems like it might be just a mini in a horizontal form factor, there's a likely high chance that that will be supported. With the Flip, the expectation is it's an entirely new processor, and so it will depend on if Onion OS and the team really want to devote that time into it. Time will tell, but I will say that without proper custom firmware, I'm not sure how much it'll take off, and I'm sure other custom firmware devs will jump at it if they can, because most just stay away because Onion OS is so good. But if Onion OS doesn't want to do it, then I'm going to expect we'll see a lot more devs just jump right in. Back to this month, the other device that is going to be releasing this month is the ZPG A1 Unicorn. Now, the Unicorn has a 1x1 720p screen, so the exact same one that is in the RGB30, or I shouldn't say exact same one, but should be the same one from what I understand. And it has a bit more of a comfortable design. You can see it. It's a little bit more ergonomic and curved, so it's got that going for it in a complete difference. There's a Helio G99 inside. It runs Android. There's a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. And it has the Sega D-pad that looks like the same one from the RG Arc, which is awesome to see. Now, for those that aren't familiar with the G99, it is the same one that the KTR1 is using. But the general expectation is you should expect to play some GameCube, some PlayStation 2, some Wii, Switch is kind of off the table, minus some indies, or if you're going to throw it at a 0.25x, if that's even available. But the general idea is that you should kind of expect to be a little bit better than a Retroid Pocket 3 Plus or an RG405M, just a bit more. It's a little bit more power than what those can do. Now, pricing-wise, it's supposed to be in that $120 to $150 price range. We did see an AliExpress listing by a reseller for $200 and something, but you can ignore that. They're basically scalpers and resellers. The actual official link is supposed to come by the end of this month. So we'll know a lot more. We'll have an idea of pricing. It's already been out in the other part of the world, but for us, we'll have to wait a little bit more to see what the final pricing will be. I think from my perspective, it looks like it's a very comfortable device, and I like the color of the red and white. That looks pretty cool. When it comes to companies like this, it's the quality control and kind of the after support. So really curious if they're going to nail that down, because I kind of put them into the same bucket, and I'm not sure if this should be the case. This is kind of just me and my lizard brain, but I kind of put them in that same bucket of KTR1 and Gameforce and companies like that. But I know that ZPG has a history of good devices, and they have done a lot of devices. So it might not be that case, but it's just my lizard brain doing that. Either way, I think with everything, just wait for a review from myself, from others, from Russ, all that sort of thing, and make a decision from there. Then, since we've started to see it pop up in videos now, and apparently we got some sort of leak that it's in a warehouse ready to go to wherever it's got to go, the Anbernic RG35XX SP, or I don't even know if that's the real name, but that's what we're calling it, but it's the clamshell RG35XX, should be coming out in soon. May, June is my guess. Now, the RG35XX SP is Anbernic's answer to the Miyoo Mini Flip, or vice versa. They're both just attacking each other. And so it's the same idea here, except the 35XX SP doesn't have sticks. And that's a big difference compared to both of them. As well, we kind of expect that it's going to have the H700 chip, so the same one as the Plus and H models from Anbernic. Looks like it has a 3.5-inch screen, so probably 480p as the normal screen that they've been using. And you can fully expect that it's going to play up to PS1 perfectly, and then some Nintendo 64, some Dreamcast, some PSP. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but yeah, it's one of those. Now, I think the main difference between both of these is going to be custom firmware support, so Onion OS versus whatever the 35XX Plus and H will have at that time, and the sticks. Will you want sticks? Do you not want sticks? Will the Miyoo Mini's D-pad and buttons, being a little bit different than they normally are, be a hindrance compared to what Anbernic will put out? There'll be some comparisons, trust me, between both of these, and I'm guessing a lot of us will probably just pull out our Game Boy Advance SP and compare it to that too. So just keep an eye out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of videos on that and setup guides and all that, and it will likely come from me as well. And not to be too far behind, we have the Powkiddy RGB20SX. These names are just killing me. The Powkiddy RGB20SX is not far from release from what it seems. They have a mold done, and we've seen a video of it. I can't imagine it's going to take much longer. They're using the same parts from other devices, so it's the RGB30's 1x1 screen, once again, in the RGB20S form factor, but it's a little bit taller to accommodate for the new screen. Has the RK3566 processor, which is the same as the RGB30 and about 100 other devices. And that's kind of it. Oh, but they also added Wi-Fi, which is awesome. And the RGB20 original S didn't have it. Overall, this is a pretty solid upgrade, I have to be honest. I am getting more interested in this device the more that I consider it and the more that I think about it, because I would love a slightly bigger than the Miyoo Mini Plus form factor with Wi-Fi, with ArcOS, and a little bit more power and a great screen, and you have a really good pocketable device there. Plus, I saw the design of the white and blue model, and I gotta have it at that point. No release date or pricing information just yet, but the big hang up for me is going to be what custom firmware does it support. The ArcOS dev has already said that he's not going to be supporting it. So the only way that it works is if it works out of the box. And there is a high chance of that happening just because it's 3566 and using the same parts and internals as the other devices. But if it doesn't, I don't know how much this takes off for me. I know others are going to be okay with the other custom firmware options, but I'm not. So if it doesn't have ArcOS, I won't be reviewing it. So I'm really hoping it does because I would love to use it. In summer of this year, we have the Orange Pi Neo, and this is a $499 US 7840U Steam Deck-like handheld. Now, it's not running SteamOS. This is running an Arch Linux distribution of Manjaro, and there's some differences here compared to the Steam Deck, of course. It's got a 7-inch 120 hertz screen, but not variable refresh rate from what I could tell. There is 16 or 32 gigabytes of RAM, depending on which model you pick. 512 to 2 terabytes of storage, again, depending on which model you pick. 50 watt-hour battery, and a lot more. But the big thing here, it has dual trackpads, so that's cool. But it also looks like the bigger brother to the Pocket S. It has a glass screen completely all over the front. And if you put them side by side, they just look like they're little and big brother. And I didn't even notice this until I put this story together and I compared the two, and they just kind of look the same. Personally, this is just me. I'm kind of sticking towards the name brand, can I return it in store devices for x86s at least, because you get burned real quickly when it comes to the Ayaneos, the GPDs, the 1X players, and all of those sorts of companies, because if you don't instantly love that device, if you don't like it, if you don't have a way to test it beforehand and you buy it, you are kind of left with it. And then you sell it used, and the used market for x86 devices is just worse than a car market. It's like as soon as you receive it, it's like driving off the lot. It's just dead. So that's kind of where my head is at. I think at the price for the Orange Pi Neo at $499 US, there's a lot of value there and the specs. So it might end up being a different scenario, but we'll have to see when it actually releases and we get some reviews and all of that. Last on the list of close releases, and we've probably been saying this for an entire year now because this is the most drawn out marketing hype, upcoming, whatever you want to say, for a handheld that I've seen in a long time, but it's the Ayaneo Pocket S. The Ayaneo Pocket S was announced back in August of 2023. It's been so long, but either way, it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to get more information in April, so this month. As far as what that information is, if it's just another teaser or if it's a launch date or something, we don't know. I'm fully expecting it'll be an announcement of a launch date and pricing and all of that sort of thing, because I don't know how much longer you can draw it out. For those that have no idea what this is, the Pocket S is the AYN Odin 2 competitor. It has a newer chip, so it's got the Snapdragon G3X Gen 2. It's got a 6-inch 1440p screen, active cooling, and a whole bunch more. There's a lot. Now, it is very much just a phone with controls on the side. It is very thin. It isn't a big footprint. It is kind of meant to just look like a phone with some controls on the side, and that's what you get. It even has glass all over the front screen, including where the controls are. So it's going to be a bit of a fingerprint magnet. But the general idea is this is going to be the most powerful Android device that you can purchase from a handheld perspective. And so that does draw in a certain crowd that does want that. Time will tell if that means anything, because as we've seen, we kind of hit a wall with Android emulation, although there is still Android games that are coming out. But even still, I'm not sure how much of a big performance gap this is going to be or increase over the Odin 2 to make this worth it. The expected pricing for this is going to be in that $450 to $500 range right now from what we can glean. And Canadians should be very, very careful because Ayaneo ships using DHL. And for any Canadian that isn't aware, that means duties and taxes on top. So on $450, you might be looking at another $50 or so just from DHL customs and duties alone. So keep that in mind. So as far as confirmed launches with some sort of date or at least an expectation. That's the list. Now we get to have some fun and we can talk about rumored devices, ones that we have some expectation that they're coming out this year, or they just flat out said it's coming out this year and we know nothing more. So number one on that list, and my personal most anticipated device of the year, is the ASUS ROG Ally 2. Now, ASUS already confirmed it's coming out this year. We got that in an article, it was in an interview at some point earlier in the year, so we know it's coming, and probably, I'm guessing, within the next few months, if I had to put a date on it. I think it's going to be a quick release and update. Not sure what sort of upgrades they're going to be doing. I have my own wish list, but on my own personal end, I love my Steam Deck OLED, but I do want a Windows device. That'll be my daily driver for an x86 handheld. And so I'm looking towards the Ally 2 in the most hopium way possible to fix my issues with the Ally 1 and just make it a perfect device for me. Now, if you're curious about my wish list, let's go through it. I'm a very simple man, and I like a lot about the Ally. It is as close to a perfect device for me as you could get, but there is some things I want to change. So first and foremost, obviously, better battery life. And my ideal scenario would be the Deck OLED's battery life, but we know that's not going to be possible. So get it within spitting distance of the Deck OLED at least. Next up is improved comfort, and I just got the claw in, and that for me is extremely comfortable. It is a lot more curved on the bottom ends to help with your hand positioning, and I would love if it was just not as tall. So if you put them next to each other, the Ally and the Deck OLED, the Ally is a little bit taller, and most of it is just because they put more padding above the screen and because of the bezels and all that. If we can cut out that quite a bit, that will help a lot. I want it to be a little bit more compact and just make it easier on your hands, especially for me who just has kind of average, normal hands. Next up, obviously fix the SD card and the issues that were happening there, and as well add an Oculink or a Thunderbolt 4 port. Either one, pick one. And that way we don't have to be stuck to their proprietary eGPU solutions. We can use whatever we want. So I'm okay with a Thunderbolt 4, like in the claw. And if honestly, if they just want to copy the claw's entire external design and kind of the Thunderbolt 4, I'm good with that. Just do that. As far as processor and all of that goes, I mean, the Ally and the Go, they have great performance already. If you can sneak out a little bit more, then awesome. If not, I mean, I am personally not going to have an issue if it has the same performance as the Ally or the Go, because I'm not looking for that. There's not going to be a scenario where I can get battery life and amazing performance. I'm going to have to give up one. And I would rather have the battery life than increase the performance any more from what it already does. Then we come to my second most anticipated one, and that's the Retroid Pocket Flip 2. And this is complete hope because there's been no rumors, no announcements, no nothing. We don't know anything. But you can kind of expect that there will be one. And so I did a whole video on this already. I'm not going to go through it all over again, but I would really love to see a Retroid Pocket Flip 2 come out this year. And I think we will. Then we come to one that I don't think a lot of people know about, but it's the GKD Bubble. And it looks pretty cool. It's bubbly. That's where it gets its name. And it has a 3.5-inch screen. It's 480p. There's a Sega D-pad again. So a great D-pad it should be that you can see. And it's kind of similar to the Unicorn and the RG Arc in that way, with just having that same D-pad. This was supposed to come out a while ago, and it was supposed to use the RK3566 processor. They've since said no, and it's going to use something else. We don't know anything. All we know is it's going to be coming out at some point in 2024 and late 2024, so we'll keep an eye on that. Going back to the clamshell fight, Anbernic isn't going to let Miyoo release a horizontal small device and let Miyoo get away with it. So we've seen a patent for the RG28SX. Now, this patent is older than, I think, my channel at this point. It's been a long time. So there's a good chance that it really doesn't even exist anymore. But the general idea is that it's an RG28XX, very similar, or at least an upgrade to the RG280M, But for some weird reason, they decided to do an Xbox layout for the buttons instead of the normal Nintendo layout. So it's a little bit weird there. There's also an HDMI out port at the top. There's no sticks. And it's kind of really like they're going for just a smaller version of the A30 without the stick and adding the HDMI port again. So the same old fight from the Miyoo Mini Plus to the 35XX. We're just going through it in a horizontal form factor now, if this ever releases. But while we're on the Anbernic front, there are two other devices that we have rumors of that might be coming out pretty soon. The first is the RG406, and this is supposed to be the successor to the RG405M. So naturally, I am super excited for this. Spec-wise, it's supposed to have a 960 by 720p screen and a Dimensity 1200 processor inside, and it's supposed to be plastic. Then there's the RG506, and that was supposed to be a smaller RG556 with a 5-inch 1080p OLED and also a Dimensity 1200 again. Personally, I think at some point the RG506 became the 556 and they scrapped it. So I don't think it's likely a thing anymore. But I do think that the RG406 is coming still. And that one, I think they swapped to a T820 chip, so the same as the 556, instead of the Dimensity 1200. And I don't think Anbernic wants to use Dimensity. I think they want to separate it from it. So they want to probably use the Unisocs and the T820s and all of that. So I fully expect that the 406 is going to use that. Gotta be honest, an updated RG405M is right up my alley, and I would love to see one right now. Last on our list in the likely dead, but you never know scenario, and I do want this to happen, it's the TrimUI brick. And I don't even think that's the actual name for it, but we're calling it the TrimUI brick. And it is a vertical TrimUI Smart, or Smart Pro, basically. Very much analog pocket designs on it, and very similar in the design of it. And it's supposed to have a better than RK3326 chip. So whatever that means, we don't know. That's all we know. Like I said, there has been no information on this for about a year now. Likely dead. I wish it wasn't, because I would love to see a device that looks like this. And I think TrimUI could pull it off, but probably not happening. And that's going to be it for this one. This is the longer video than I expected. Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious, do any of these hit? Is there a top 3 of this list that you're interested in? And I'm probably going to guess that the clamshells are going to be first for a lot of people, and then something else. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.